welcome back to Nothing But Football, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, it is a Friday, and Ben is smiling. And that's not because he's done his hair, got a nice jacket, had a haircut and beard trim recently. It's because Thomas Frank has been sacked. Oh, well, maybe he's just
up close and personal, not high quality.
Not brilliant. Yeah, you boys, I'm bringing it down a little bit with my hoodie. You boys look very nice. Henry, how are you doing?
I'm all right. Yeah, I'm fine. I was saying to you, I just looked at the table again, and Fulham, having touted us for a European push, we're now in a relegation fight again. This season is bonkers. And like, Forest have just fired Sean Dyche after losing one game in 6. Not even lose it. Well, yeah. Then they draw last night or something like that.
Wasn't he nominated for Manager of the Month in January?
Yeah. And then this is shaping up to be, forget about the title race, I don't really care about that. The rest of this league is shaping up to be one of the most extraordinary seasons.
Should we just ignore that? Who wins the title? I think this season. Let's just ignore it.
Well, the Sharks are circling, lads.
Let's just the Sharks circling. Let's leave it at that. Leave it at that for now.
There is an argument.
It's a tough place to go.
It is. I agree.
Whoever wins it this year, whether it be City or Arsenal or United, who knows? Whoever wins it, it's not like a vintage title win, is it?
Hey, Henry, you said it, mate. I'm not saying
it's not like this.
I know the Arsenal fans get on to you.
Piers Morgan obviously rage baiting, going, we've got the best squad in like the history. It's like, no, you don't. What are you on about?
It's just factually not true.
Yeah, it's just like you don't play that interesting football. Like I've not. How often do you sit and watch? I don't know. I'm off. How
he's ready to go.
I actually think we're quite cool for Arsenal to win the league, but do not tell me that they are like the most interesting, best thing to watch. Do you know what I mean? Because they're not. They just sort of play functional football.
Yeah, and you've got no dog in the fight as well. I think people think it's always like laced in bias, but I think most neutrals will go, they are quite boring, but
Fulham are objectively more fun to watch than Arsenal.
I agree. I thought you had some good chances last night.
Right, yeah, 12th place. Come on.
I will not comment. No comments. Let's get on then to, as you can see by the title of this video, I think next week what we're going to do actually spend a bit more time talking about the relegation zone and all few of those teams. Henry, I'm sorry, he wanted to do it this week, but come on, big news has happened. We need to talk. My goodness, we need to talk about Tottenham Hotspur. Lots going on there at the moment. On the day that Ange Postecoglou also reveals all about his time there, we're also seeing that Thomas Frank has been sacked. I mean, is it a surprise? Is it a shock? Obviously, after a 2-1 loss to Newcastle United at home as well. At home. Frank did get the boot with obviously Spurs not too far from the relegation zone either. Quickly, we spoke a lot about Frank, I think, over the last few months, but firstly, let's just have a touch upon him and his time at Spurs, because I also do think we have to say, we probably did this video, a year ago? Just over a year ago? And let's be honest here, lads. We picked Thomas Frank to be the Spurs manager. We said that he should be the guy Spurs go after. And so, I think it's worth admitting that to you guys as well. I think everybody there, I think a lot of people...
He's a good manager.
Yeah.
It was kind of between him and Iraola, I remember us really, when we were thinking about it. And we liked what he'd done at Brentford. I think a lot of us felt like this was a time for him to kind of take that next step. He'd done incredible jobs. Everybody had always spoken about him as maybe like the next guy. We always spoke about how he dealt with the media really, really well. Fast forward to now, a year and a bit later, and he has been sacked from that very job. So Ben, go on, give us your thoughts, opinions on Frank's reign of Spurs, and maybe even compared to what you first thought when you first hired him as well. Your expectations then too.
Yeah, I thought. Yeah, we said it about a year ago. I said it around April sort of time when it looked like we were going to move on from Ange, and then obviously into the summer when we did do that. That Frank would have probably been out of realistic options, one of my number one. Well, certainly close to my number one choice. And I was really excited by the appointment. I think out of any kind of mid-table manager, although he didn't win anything with Brentford, like obviously Glasner did with Crystal Palace, I think he showed a lot of flexibility, adaptability, ability to play exciting football and improve attacking players as well, which is obviously something that Ange was able to do at Tottenham during his time in terms of making us play on the front foot and those kind of things. But it did feel like we needed a bit of a balance after what was a hectic kind of couple of years under Postecoglou, despite him kind of being the embodiment of the sort of football in an ideal world Spurs want to play. And I'm sure we'll come on to Ange's comments probably in a little bit, but it just never really felt like it was probably going to work long term with the lack of support that he was always going to get. We weren't going to be able to build a squad fully in his kind of mould and with the depth that would be required with the intensity that he plays with. Whereas Frank, I think it's felt like the right kind of almost middle. I said this at the time, middle ground between what we saw with Conte and Mourinho and that kind of football. Despite the fact that they were winners and it was done to win, obviously they had Kane and Son that would have carried them through a lot of moments. And Ange's football, which was obviously at times a bit too gung ho, and those kind of things. So I think Frank felt like the perfect middle ground, a kind of safe pair of hands to just almost rebuild us a little bit and kind of get us back to at least competing in and around those European places, and then hopefully kind of kick on from there as he settles in. That hasn't happened. He obviously had a very good start. I think we saw a lot of those adaptable elements kind of throughout the summer. Some decent things in pre-season kind of here and there as well. Improvement on set pieces, which was a big blind spot of Ange's last season as well. When you look at where the Premier League is going, as boring as that conversation is, it was a problem for us. And then obviously you saw two good performances at the start of the season against top opposition in Man City and PSG, which is kind of Frank's bread and butter in terms of what he was able to do at Brentford and really compete with the big boys. But we saw some other decent stuff and some decent performances towards that first international break, despite some things that might have held us back. And we thought, okay, they're teething problems, let's see how he kind of gets on. But we were in a decent place. I think we were third in the table after we beat Everton away 3-0. And then things really started to kind of unravel from there, from the Chelsea game onwards.
Yeah, that has been the moment everyone kind of picks out on, isn't it?
Because I think it's just like, I think the problem with Frank's reign up until the point that he got sacked is that he's largely been far too worried about the opposition rather than setting Tottenham out to be the dominant, aggressive force, especially at home, right? I've got no issue with, Spurs not being as good a team as Chelsea or Arsenal, but you always have to feel like you're in the game in those kind of games, especially with the added extra of it being a derby and the feeling that kind of comes with that. And that Chelsea performance was incredibly gutless. And it was like, especially at home as well. And I think that is where some people started to go, oh, actually, we can't accept performances like that in a London derby. Fast forward 2 weeks after the next international break, going to the Arsenal game, which was even worse. Like just letting them, we just rolled over and let them tickle our belly really. And I think that's when a lot of people started to go. And then Fulham at home was the game after that, where it was like, okay, well, look, as frustrating as that Arsenal game was, as unacceptable as it was, we need to make sure that we can develop a game plan, or Frank can develop a game plan that helps us beat teams, no disrespect, like Fulham, that we should be beating as a club the stature of Tottenham Hotspur at home on a regular basis. And that it just went from bad to worse, and it spiraled and spiraled and spiraled. And that is the first time I was like, I think he should be sacked. I understood the opinion of Spurs fans that wanted to give him more time because he's not been here that long. At that point,
injuries as well. I think we have to talk about the
injuries. At that point, we had a fully fit squad.
Oh, really?
At that point, we had a fully fit squad. And this is where I do lay a lot of the blame, really, not so much at Frank's door, despite the fact that his position, he made his own position untenable because of the lack of adaptability and the poor football that he played and the lack of ability to get results, despite that being, what he kind of was able to do at Brentford during difficult moments.
Yeah.
Most of the blame for me around this whole situation is on the club. Really, because I think there was talk that came out yesterday. Obviously, this always happens when a manager gets sacked. The kind of tell-all, exclusive sort of insights from the club.
Both people play their side.
There was a lot of members from the board that apparently wanted Frank sacked after that Fulham game. But I think Vinay Venkateshan was obviously very desperate to cling on. I think he kind of made Frank his guy, his first big appointment, alongside Daniel Levy when he was still here. And I almost think because he was at Arsenal during those times with Arteta and navigated those kind of choppy waters a little bit, I almost felt like he would rather just stick to his guns rather than kind of listen to the people around him and listen to the fans, it very much started to swing at that point in terms of the majority of fans probably wanting him gone. It was a lot more of an even split, but I'd say most people, the larger majority of people did. And it felt like he just stuck to his guns for way too long and has now got us into a position really by keeping with him through that difficult January period, the difficult January period that we had, but that included a lot of winnable games. If we'd have made a change just after Christmas or around that kind of time, we had Brentford away on New Year's Day, we had Sunderland at home, we had Bournemouth, we had West Ham, and we had Burnley, and we didn't win a single one of those games. And despite some slightly brighter moments in fleeting moments in games and some wins in the Champions League, there was nothing at all to cling on to, and it felt like the board were looking at those Champions League results on face value and saying, look, he's got us to fourth in the Champions League, or those kind of things, without acknowledging the step down in quality from the Premier League to the Champions League. And I think if we'd have made a change before then, when there was probably more interim options available that would have been more likely to take the job because the situation didn't come with as much pressure, certainly wasn't as precarious, would have been a good opportunity for them to get themselves into a job for 6 months, guide us through a difficult period, breathe a bit of feel-good factor into the club, and then maybe we reassess in the summer. You could have gone and got a Carrick or someone like that, and you look at what he's done with Manchester United. And even if we'd won 2 of those games, Bournemouth, West Ham, Burnley, we probably wouldn't be in this position.
Yeah.
We'd be 11 points clear of the relegation zone, which is basically where we started that West Ham game. And look at the confidence that we gave them with another insipid performance at home. We've won 2 games at home in the Premier League this season against Burnley and Brentford. It's just not acceptable. But as much as I hold the blame at Frank's door for a lot of the stuff, and I feel like he's got a huge free pass in the media, which has been incredibly frustrating for Spurs fans to listen to, him being stuck up for every single week, every single excuse made for him under the sun that wasn't given to the previous manager or some previous managers, certainly Ange Postecoglou, in the way that those two were kind of regarded, and similar situations were judged with completely different viewpoints, really. I don't know. My blame lies with the club massively.
I think it's fair enough. I think it's completely fair enough.
They put him in this position. It didn't have to go on for this long.
I mean, to give context quickly of where the Spurs are right now, they're 16th, 29 points. Forest 17th on 27 points, and then West Ham on 24 points. I mean, I think the others in terms of Burnley and Wolves is probably a bit too far, but it is that last place that, it's not a million miles away right now. Headers from maybe the neutral point of view, the view of someone who I like to think actually takes. I always think you take a viewpoint maybe different to what the mainstream would look at. I do think that. What's your thoughts of these?
Do you know what? My brain flip-flaps between wanting just like go in on Tottenham and their fan base and being sympathetic. At the end of the day, like Thomas Frank, there's a reason we said that it was a good appointment. He'd earned his flowers, and you do have to. I worry for what this will happen. This will mean to other coaches when it comes to getting the opportunities to go to these bigger teams.
But it has happened a few times to these level of coaches. Like, let's say what Graham Potter was a similar level of.
No, I agree with you. I agree with you, and I think we're going to see less and less. We're going to see less and less of these managers getting their leg up, and they almost need to go abroad and prove themselves and come back.
But also,
it's almost like getting a promotion at work. Sometimes you have to go to a different company to get the bigger players. So I do worry about it a little bit. And like you said, I remember watching the PSG game at the start of the season. I remember thinking it was really positive. It sounds like he massively lost the dressing room. Yeah. And I think there was a good article actually on the BBC about this, where they basically said, Yves Bissouma at the start of the season, he punishes him for being late. And I think the squad respected that. Bear in mind, you're coming off the back of a very strong character in Ange Postecoglou. You say what you want about his tactics. The squad loved him, and he's a big figure. He's an authoritative voice. Frank is a bit of a step down from that, isn't he? He's sort of like nice with a hug, whereas I think Postecoglou is more of like firm hug, but you do what I tell you, boy. So he does that with Bissouma at the start of the season, but then you're beginning to see, as things begin to unravel, as the performances don't go his way.
Chelsea game where the boys walk off the pitch as well.
Yeah, that's disgraceful. No punishment whatsoever. And then again, Romero basically just giving a free pass to slag the club off on social media. At the end of the day, if you're going to treat certain people with privileges and others not, you're going to have more problems which grow and come about it. Some of his substitutions, some of the way that he's tried to change games, or sort of lack of tactical nous in those situations.
How long it took at times to put Simmons in like a 10 position. He kept sticking him out on the left wing.
And then if it's true that he was there talking about Arsenal a lot in the dressing room, then it is a bit amateur hour for Thomas Frank.
And this is what I think was surprising for us, right?
A little bit, isn't it?
Definitely. I mean, that's one of the really interesting things that the Ange kind of interview so far has revealed, right? That he said within the club, they look at Spursy as like an actual thing. Like, that is bonkers to me, that you are, it's a bit of a... It's true. It's always a joke online and like a joke. I'd always thought that people say within the football community, but within the actual football clubs, to be like, oh, we've just Spursed it. Oh, we've just... That cannot be happening. And, Ange himself has said about, they do all these great things in terms of they've got an incredible facility, an incredible stadium, but then they don't actually go on to be that level, to try and do the final things needed to get to that level and to match the level of being one of the best clubs in the world by having one of the best stadiums in the world. Yeah. I think one of the real frustrations I've had with Frank, and one of the things that I thought he did really well previously, was the way he spoke. I think you look at him in a Brentford scenario with the media, and he handled it really well. And look, there are different pressures, right? This Brentford side, their expectation is to not get relegated. Yeah. And when you can do that, you can be better with the media. You can have a bit of a joke. You can handle scenarios better. You can talk about your best player leaving and prove that, it doesn't matter because you're still staying up, and if anything, you're doing better than what you were previously. At Spurs, You can't do that. I mean, God, the guy fucking walked out of a game with an Arsenal cup. Like, I know that's not his fault, and I know to a degree, like, especially to someone like him, like, what does it matter? No, I'm sure it doesn't matter.
The optics
are awful.
This is where I don't agree with what Ben's saying about, like, why is he being protected in the media so much? I don't understand why we want just to hammer these fans. At the end of the day, the thing that he should be judged on is where they are on the table, and that's ultimately what's cost him his job. Like, the idea that he should just be... Look at the way that Liam Rosenier gets, like, battered just for saying, like, slightly David Brentish comments.
Yeah,
just leave him alone.
No,
he's a good manager. Postecoglou used to... Because it was so easy to wind him up and get a few good quotes out of him, that's why, basically... They were teased and got at a little bit more because it was easier. It was more clickbaity to do that. And, like, you're right, Zach. Like, Thomas Frank speaks very well, so he gets a bit more of a free pass. I don't necessarily think that he should be hung out to dry in the media like that. Like, at the end of the day, if the squad's not doing well,
you've got to judge it on the results. And at the end of the day, there are massive double standards in the way. And you are right in terms of the fact that Ange was an easier bear to kind of poke and get stuff out of 100%. But the way he was, like, constantly, and this is coming from someone that didn't necessarily want him to stay on into the third season, because I did have doubts about it long term and those kind of things, right? But we're the ones paying incredible amounts of money to go and watch this football every single week. And when you feel like you turn on the TV, you look at social media, and you've got pundits sitting there that just are clearly ignoring what the actual issues are with Tottenham on the pitch and off the pitch, and just using any excuse they can to stick up for him that didn't apply to the previous manager. I agree broadly with what you're saying in the sense that we shouldn't just hang managers out to dry for the sake of it. All of the stuff with Liam Rosenior has been absolutely baffling. It has. I don't get it. I hate Chelsea, but I think it's wrong. I think it's just like people doing it because it's exactly what you said.
Twitter, though, isn't it? It's like the online world. Sadly, the online world at times really.
I said it about Rosenior. I was like, it'll be interesting to see. He obviously does speak very well, but it'd be interesting to see how that kind of scales up when the pressure cooker dials up. But I think he's actually handled that really well, and Frank hasn't done that.
Yeah,
but. What I was sick and tired of, and that's why I do talk about the treatment in the media, it's not about Frank in isolation. It's the double standards compared to previous managers that have not been afforded the same excuses as what Frank has. When the football has been worse, our record is worse than it was at this point last season. He's statistically the worst manager in Tottenham Hotspur history, the worst Big Six manager in history, and every single excuse is being made from under the sun because he's a nice guy. And I'm sure Thomas Frank is a nice guy. It's part of the reason why I wanted him at the football club. Again, I can hold my hands up and say that I really wanted him. We obviously, anyone who did, we obviously judged that wrong. We weren't necessarily was to know what was to come, but it's not right the way that he was constantly stuck up for and excuses were always made for him when we're sitting there watching this turgid football week in, week out, where nothing is changing and people are just going, it's the injuries, it's the injuries.
Ultimately, what do you want out of that process? What are you saying? You want him to receive
like
more
you want to feel
criticism
seen,
earlier?
don't you? You want to feel seen. You want to feel like what you're watching is what other people are watching. And to be fair, that was what was quite refreshing about listening to Stick to Football this morning, is that I thought Carragher and Neville especially kind of got it bang on with what was going on at the club and the fact that his position became untenable. I feel sorry for... I think the sacking culture and all those kind of things is a problem in football. I think the level of scrutiny towards managers is a problem in football when the director of football should take equally as much responsibility. Like I said at the start of the video, the burden of responsibility, in my eyes, mainly is on the football club. It's not necessarily on Thomas Frank totally, and I've always maintained this despite the fact that I've wanted him sacked for the last few months. It's not just about him, but you do just want to feel seen a little bit as a football fan. When you're seeing these issues, you're seeing nothing improve, and you're seeing excuses being made for a manager that weren't there for the previous one. I get what your point is, that it's like, does that actually really matter in hindsight? But when it does sorry, not in hindsight, but you know what I mean? Does it really matter in the grand scheme of things, right? But when you're... football media consumes so much of, like, in terms of influences people's narratives and people's opinions on things, and it's like it's so jarring listening to people that clearly don't understand what's going on at Tottenham and are not watching us and are making excuses for a guy just because he's maybe done a bit of punditry work and he's a nice guy and he's come from Brentford and all those kind of things.
Your league position is totally unacceptable, okay? For the squad that you've got, it is
should
totally
be sacked. That is the only reason. Yeah.
I categorically agree with that. But again, I just think I don't think there's a load of managers out there who you could have hired that would have done a much better job of this team. As I said, you came 17th last year.
But nobody can set the ball, can they? That's the annoying thing, you know.
Like Spurs are just not good enough. They're just not a good enough team.
But
and like this, Ben,
that squad is good enough to be better where they are.
They're better, yeah. But are they as good as the teams in the top six? I don't think so at the moment. I really don't think.
We're definitely not at the moment.
Yeah, but I think there's this consistent idea that Spurs should be about fifth.
Sacked. Like if Frank was eighth Frank
would definitely not be in sacked.
I think there'd be a lot more.
I think some Spurs fans just believe because they've got this nice stadium, because they are essentially off the pitch, the total package.
But there is
they
an
believe they
argument to
should be
say-
up there. And like,
If you
I'm
look
sorry,
at their
but like, at
spending
the end of
on
the day, like,
wages and
football boils down to 11 players on the pitch beating another 11 players, and they're just not good enough. Like the fact is, they went and spent loads of money on like Archie Gray, but players like that. I'm sorry, like they have to be a bit more big time. They have to go get some more like established
Spurs
this is
fans should be
what-
annoyed
and-
because of the board. Like
Exactly.
Spurs fans,
Well,
this is
like,
the,
the
my,
wages
my,
and
my,
stuff
thing,
like that.
my thing is like it's not. It's the board's fault. Like, I don't think it's necessarily on
But I don't
Frank.
think any
Like,
Spurs fan is
I think
not
just
saying
like
that.
hammering Frank just because of like the board's
they
shortcomings. Like,
gonna
what do you want?
do?
Do you want to just like punch Frank just to like prove a point to
But
the
he's
to the
also
managers?
not being like the two things can be true.
And he's backed the board as well, Frank, as well. Like,
Yeah.
he's complimented them
Yeah, of
many
course,
times.
he
and
has to.
things, and he has to.
The biggest problem at Tottenham Hotspur Football Club is the people that run it. That is 100% the biggest thing. I don't think you'll find a single Spurs fan that wouldn't agree with that statement.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean that Frank didn't do a good enough job. Because he did have a fully
I agree
fit,
with you, he didn't
he
do
did
a
have a
good enough
largely
job.
fully fit squad up until the last few months, and I hold the board massively accountable. And they've got everything that this board have got everything that they deserve, right? Really, in the sense that Wilson Odobey the other day has now torn his ACL after they said before January that we want to go sign Antoine Semenyo and all these kind of things. A winger is a priority position.
Yeah.
They then sell Brennan Johnson on the 1st of January to Crystal Palace, which is actually the sort of sale that we've been quite bad at in the past, cashing in on a player that has, minimal impact in the squad outside of goals, and I think he's certainly a player that is upgradable. And then Mohamed Kudus gets injured the day after that against Sunderland. We learn in the week following that he's then going to be out for 3 months, and they still don't go and sign another attacker, despite the fact that they said they were going to do that prior to January. Then you got Thomas Frank coming out with all that crap that we've heard a million times before about, trust me, I can tell you now, this board are ambitious. We don't usually do this, but we wanted to go and sign Antoine Semenyo. That would have been a big statement and all these kind of things. But we've been led down that garden path so many times, and it's not Frank's fault because he's just the mouthpiece for that thing. But and that's why I said it's the club that should be held 100% accountable. But two things can be true. We are hammering Frank because because of what we are seeing on the pitch, which he has big control over. He's not been adaptable enough. He's not developed an attacking game plan really whatsoever throughout the whole time he's been here. He's clearly lost the players. He's not able to motivate them, able to kind of inspire them, able to actually coach them. And I think that would be evident to anyone who's really watched Tottenham this season. There was a piece, I think, from Jay Harris on even the Athletic or the BBC yesterday that said that the amount of teams that have come away from Tottenham thinking that was the easiest game that we've had all season, can't believe how easy they were to play against. There is a point where, yes, the board are the biggest problem, but you also have to isolate some of the blame of the manager, because that is literally his job. It is his job. The squad's not good enough, and I said that in the summer. We've left ourselves. I thought it was the best summer transfer window a Spurs manager has had in a long time, but that doesn't mean that we did everything that we can. And this is why I come back to Johan Lang's statement at the end of January, where he sat down for Spurs TV and said, look, we didn't want to panic in January and all those kind of things. We brought in Conor Gallagher and we brought in a young left back, a kid from Brazil. Can they really sit there at the end of the season if Spurs go down and say they did absolutely everything that they could to keep us up? So if
Do you really think you're going to go down? You're not going to go down.
I think Spurs fans are getting a lot more.
Look at us.
worried,
Honestly, look
man.
at us. I think with a new manager, you'll probably get a little bit of bounce, 100%, and we might be okay because Forest are bad, but they've just sacked their manager and those kind of things.
Because they also realise there's a chance of being
Yeah.
able to leapfrog Spurs, and West Ham I think realise this as well. Like,
Look at the shot in the arm and the confidence that we gave West Ham when we played them. Look how well they've been playing since they beat us. They've got momentum. We've not got any momentum.
You guys are still in the driving seat. That's the thing, and that's why, like,
course,
it should
yeah.
have happened a while ago. But I think that's why they've pulled the plug now. I think the other thing as well that fans find, why Frank will probably end up getting more blame is also to a degree, what can fans do to a board? Really, I know Spurs fans themselves have organised things like walkouts mid-game and stuff like this, and then it fell on the time when you were beating City. and stuff
I
like
didn't
that. It
necessarily
is what it
agree
is.
with doing that, but I think
still,
I understand the sentiment.
Ultimately, like, with a manager, you can express your frustration because that can have an impact on getting him out of the job. With the board, whatever you do, really, ultimately, sadly, unless you are able to hit pockets and that's a really tough thing to do, to be honest, because at the end of the day, you're still going to Spurs because you want to enjoy the day out, you want to enjoy having a drink, food, whatever it is. Yeah. If you're not doing that, then really the board are never going to be impacted, like compared to how you could impact a manager, unfortunately.
And this is what we were saying on the pod last week.
With Jordan.
About the fact that this is what Tottenham have done. I mean, it will all go tits up if we go to the Championship, but in terms of building the revenue model in the way that they have,
the match day is incredible.
And this is why I think they also sacked Thomas Frank, because they looked at it and looked at the amount of empty seats on Tuesday night and think that they're looking at that as money. They're seeing it as money.
Definitely.
Partly why they've made that decision. because it will hurt their pockets, and that is the way to hurt the football club, is hurt them in the pocket. But that's a very difficult thing to do, to walk away from your football club and stop going, or stop, all those kind of things, because you have an attachment to the football club and you fundamentally care and you want to get behind the team. And I think now, look, our next game is Arsenal. The fans will be a lot more up for that, just because Thomas Frank isn't there. And again, like I said, I sympathise with Thomas Frank because he's been the victim of what a lot of other Spurs managers have previously. Yeah. But he made his own position untenable as well, with his lack of ability to adapt and his lack of ability to coach his players in a way that
maybe there was also an
brought
argument to
more
say
results.
that. Maybe there is an argument to say that actually the leap from going from Ange to Frank was bigger than maybe we imagined, and the squad that was there too was a bigger leap than we imagined. I think to a degree, actually, Ange says that in some of his comments actually in the interview, about like that squad was kind of made, or was getting made for the way that I wanted to play.
Well, this is the thing.
I'd also say to a degree, I kind of feel a bit like Ange isn't maybe taking enough.
This is kind of my problem.
Enough of the credit of like it went bad for him as well.
Yeah, this is the thing with the Ange Postecoglou interview, right? I am really glad that he's done it in terms of the fact that he's exposing the football club. I would say that he's not necessarily telling us as Spurs fans things that we don't necessarily already know. Yeah. But it's good to hear it because they need to be held accountable on the biggest football podcast in the UK after obviously Nothing But Football. They need to be held accountable for that in that kind of setting with those people around them. But he is also, you have to acknowledge that he's also got an axe to grind himself and those kind of things. So it's like, it's hard to judge it really, but I'm glad he did it.
He's got an axe to grind. Let's not forget that you finished 17th last year again, and you were like,
and his football times wasn't much
defensively
better.
Woeful.
Yes,
at points. I love Ange.
To be fair, he didn't have his two centre backs basically the whole season.
I want Brighton to bin off Hertzler and get Ange in and just have a bit of a laugh. But for him to be like, I don't think another manager should come out and say that manager deserves to get fired. I think that's breaking a golden rule.
Yeah, it's like a golden rule.
It's breaking a golden rule of like, he is a peer of yours. Whatever, he's basically essentially a colleague. It's just a bit like, come on, mate.
The question is, does he say
why was he just available to come in halfway through a shoot? Was he just?
I think it's a weird.
He was meant to be there anyway.
Coincidence. Right, like he's meant to. They were just maybe doing an interview with Ange, and it's happened.
Do you believe that?
I thought they said he was coming in the week after. They said
no. They were filming it.
They filmed it in 2 weeks. What they do is on one. They film two in one day, basically.
I was like, is he just sat around like, right?
No. They do like a current affairs one of what's happening that week, goes out that week, but then afterwards they film it with a guest. That goes out the following week.
Fair enough. Yeah, I
think it was a weird coincidence to
They literally couldn't have picked it any better.
Well, let's talk a little bit about the future then, Ben. There's a few managers that we need to talk about. I want to press you first. Who is your manager? Who is the ideal manager for you, Ben?
Are we talking short term or long term?
Well, whatever fits your narrative, right? Like, who is the ideal manager? And if that means, they come in the summer, then I want both for short term and long term.
Yeah.
If they are available now, you say that. But who is your ideal manager for Spurs, Ben?
If you say one name,
I know. I based off what you said in the group chat yesterday, I know I have the same thoughts as you on that manager anyway.
And we'll go through the others afterwards, but I want to hear the first. I think your first one.
Spurs are in a very difficult situation, as I said, because of how late they left it to sack Thomas Frank, meaning that they haven't got as many options in the market for an interim appointment, which would be my favourable route: interim, and then get a permanent manager in the summer. In terms of interim options, it's not looking great.
It's not.
Because Ryan Mason knows the club, all those kind of things. I think Ryan Mason,
Johnny Heitinga, what are they on about?
Well, Johnny Heitinga's the assistant manager at the moment.
He is the assistant manager right now.
Johnny Heitinga came in about a month ago.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, you've been bloody good since then, actually.
Well, the thing is, it's difficult with Johnny Heitinga because he has taken over the training, he's taken over a lot of the tactical side of things and all that kind of stuff, right? Which there have been slight improvements in moments, as I said, in games, but it's not been anywhere near enough to be convinced that he... But he's also... would you get more out of the players by him then being more hands-on with them in a man management way? I literally don't know. He failed massively at Ajax. I think a lot of people had a lot of good stuff to say about him at Liverpool last season, but again, look at Liverpool's squad compared to ours, all those kind of things. So I think Heitinga is it's impossible for me to say whether he is the right guy or not, just as it would be for any interim manager, really. I think Robbie Keane is someone that's been spoken about. Robbie Keane is obviously at Ferencváros. He gave quite a weird, ambiguous answer yesterday in a post-match interview where he got asked about it and he said, I can't comment on speculation, and then literally walked away from the interviewer, if anyone's seen that.
He's surely not up sticking for a interim job.
Well, this is the thing, isn't it? This is the thing.
It's not a bad interim job. Like if you can prove somewhat success, like the rumours of you might get a full-time guy.
Might get a championship job.
Next season. Yeah, I think you could easily end up pulling a nice move afterwards.
Yeah, it's honestly, I find it really difficult to talk about the interim situation because there's not like my ideal manager to come in the summer would be Mauricio Pochettino. So Spurs can't get him now.
No, you can't.
But I say that Poch isn't okay. Poch is my ideal manager in terms of what I actually think that Spurs need to get back to where we should be, or build those kind of bridges to get there.
But you don't know if he's actually Poch.
Yeah, I agree. And also, there are better managers that I would obviously like more than Poch. But are Spurs going to be in a situation to attract Julian Nagelsmann, Xabi Alonso in the summer?
What do you mean? You have attracted managers like that in the past.
But we haven't been finishing 17th.
No, I think
16th.
Nagelsmann would be really cool.
But does Nagelsmann come?
Mate, Nagelsmann is my dream
United
choice, but
jobs available,
Nagelsmann, exactly.
like,
I don't think Nagelsmann will come to
City
Tottenham.
job might be available.
Again, you say that. I don't think you can overlook. Again, the brochure for Tottenham is normally pretty good. It's like, well, look, you've got all these amazing things, and we might spend some money on players. We'll see.
Yeah,
As Henry said yesterday, Spurs are very lucky they're in London.
Yeah, Spurs are very lucky.
No,
You are
right.
very lucky you're a London club. Genuinely, you're very lucky. Like, if you were not based in London, you'd be in the Championship already. I really believe
Yeah, but
that.
we can't. Maybe. I mean, to be fair though, we've only had one or 2 seasons now in the last 20, 25 years of this happening. It's not like this is what annoys me about the media thing with Spurs as well, is that it's almost like people want us to be in this position because it validates how they feel about Tottenham, even though we have consistently finishing European places.
I get what you mean by that.
Like, we're constantly being told, well, what did you expect and all this kind of stuff. It's like we finished 17th last year, and there was context to that. We obviously weren't good enough, but that is a huge blip for Tottenham, and anyone pretending that it isn't is lying, because we finished in Europe for, I reckon, 80 to 90% of the last 20 seasons, right? We might not have won many trophies, but anyway. So yeah, of course, Nagelsmann, yes. Like, Nagelsmann absolutely would be
but you're trying to be a bit realistic in it.
I just think that's not going to happen. Like, I just don't think it's going to happen. So I think with Pochettino, and this is why, to be honest, I can't answer your question on the interim manager, because I just don't, I think it's an impossible question right now. I just see who they get. Poch in the summer, I think he hasn't exactly pulled up any trees since he's left Tottenham, right? He did okay with Chelsea towards the end, obviously, and did okay with PSG. Probably underachieved, but I think PSG, it's difficult because it's the management of egos and all those kind of things.
But do you think Pochettino is, Pochettino's football when he was the manager of Spurs originally was in a great time, a great period. If anything, I think it was almost a transition of like the era of Jose Mourinho, Wenger, to the era of now,
High
Pep
pressing,
Guardiola, high pressing, Jurgen Klopp. He was almost the perfect manager at the time.
Yeah,
what I actually think we've seen with Poch, since it's become fully that era, is him struggle.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, at Chelsea, you please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, but I feel like a lot of the issues were your in-possession game plan in terms of build-up out from the back. Yeah. And also,
the idea was just give the ball to Cole Palmer.
Yeah.
That was the idea.
And also in terms of your...
And that's not a bad idea. Pep basically did that at Barcelona. Give the ball to Messi. It's not saying that Palmer and Messi are the same thing, but that's not...
It felt like your pressing was quite disjointed at times as well.
Definitely.
You were also quite wasteful in front of goal as well. You did create a lot of chances, but a lot of them kind of came from...
as well.
A lot of them kind of came from direct attacks, which were, as a result, like you said, of kind of individual moments a lot of the time. But I feel like part of the reason... And again, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong, towards that back stretch of the season where things actually started to click was because obviously Enzo Fernandez got injured, didn't he?
Yeah.
And he started to move Cucurella into that inverted position in midfield. Yeah. And you weren't playing as much of a possession-orientated game plan, which you didn't necessarily... which the director of football and the owners wanted to kind of play.
Yeah, it became transitional.
And that then results really started to turn around, didn't they? And also, I think it does... There is a lot to be said about the fact that Pochettino, with all of the scrutiny around him at Chelsea during that time and the media pressure and the fan pressure, because let's face it, Chelsea fans weren't having him from the start, were they? Because of the Tottenham links and all that kind of stuff. Or a lot of Chelsea fans, not just generalising.
You're right.
So
definitely.
to be able to, it says something about his ability to galvanise a group and his man management and his ability to give players freedom that meant that he could turn that around after losing to Liverpool in that Carabao Cup final that you should never have lost.
And also, like, I to this day am still shocked he never got sacked after Arsenal. The Arsenal 5-0.
But that was the only game you lost in that 12-game run.
Right? But it was... but that was the start of the run. That was like the start of... that was at the early bit. Before that as well, wasn't good football. Before that, we had a lot of negative results. And then after that, we picked up a lot more results.
Yeah.
I mean, Poch, it's tough with Poch because also, like, at the same time, he never gelled, like, really well with that, like, ownership, and it was never an easy transition.
Almost Maresca was kind of Poch Mark II in some ways.
Exactly. Especially this season. But we also, the other thing you guys have to remember with Poch at Spurs, he had one of the best strikers we've ever seen in the Premier League. You don't have that now.
No.
You don't, like, one of the really good things he was able to, and also at the same time, look, he obviously came to that level as well. He had Heung-min Son, managed to get him to an incredible level too. But there aren't, Dominic Solanke is never going to be Harry Kane.
No.
There isn't. of course, there's the idea that Odegaard could be really, really good. Obviously, Kudus is fantastic, and he could come and do that. But I do worry if you brought in someone like Pochettino again. One, there is also the expectation because of what you've already seen for, Dad's home. He's going to come fix it.
Yeah.
Everything's going to be all bright again, and we're going to have great weekends together. But actually, he's an alcoholic, and his life's gone really bad. Like, it's not working.
Yeah.
It's a weird analogy.
I do get.
But
I do get that. I also do think that if he was to come back though. I feel like a lot of there would obviously naturally be expectation. I said this a few weeks ago in the sense that like even people that wouldn't be in favour of it, and I'm not saying that I'm not massively totally convinced that he is the right guy. I just think for what Spurs maybe need, I think he does make sense as an option. And I think that
I would wait for the World Cup because I've been speaking to some American fans and they reckon
their results have been really poor.
Well,
that's not a great squad.
They beat Europe. Well, they still got that run up to a home World Cup. They still should. That should be enough momentum to get them. Like we've seen worse hosts do quite well at a World Cup.
Yeah.
A lot of the Americans I spoke to reckon the time they come up against one good team, like even Paraguay in the group stages, I think USA are going to really, really struggle. Like because a lot of them is just like, fingers crossed, Pulisic.
I wonder if
does the
Poch is
business.
trying to almost get it done before the World Cup. So like the PR.
Well, this is it. Like, I would 100% wait and see what happens.
And I agree.
There.
Look,
like Canada are going to be better than them.
We've just seen. I mean, it looks like it's been announced that Thomas Tuchel's actually signed a new deal to stay at England until 2028. Obviously, the Euros in 2028 is in England as well.
Yeah,
I think
that's my gaffer.
I think that'll be incredible. So that's another manager that obviously won't be able to do it. And obviously that actually kind of knocks back to United. I think a lot of United fans had hopes that he'd end up coming to them.
Carrick's to the wheel, mate.
But interesting about Poch. Let's go through a few of the others then. Henry, one I want to mention to you because I know you've got some interesting thoughts and opinions on him. De Zerbi. De Zerbi is a manager out there who I think people constantly talk about having this level of genius and level of ability that he could be one of the best managers in the world. And let's be honest, that you can understand why that is there.
Look, I've fallen for it a few times. I watched Marseille play at Real Madrid in the Champions League this year. I saw Timothy Weah do things I didn't think he could do. I was like, you know what? Marseille are all right. They are exciting. And actually the squad he's got there is quite fun. He's getting outdone by Lens in Ligue 1 right now.
He's done quite well over the last few years. Let's give him
No. Like Marseille are quite comfortably the second biggest team in France financially. And I just think, again, I said this on Twitter, he's won a Serie C Cup with Foggia, okay? Where it's like exclusively teams in Serie C. And he won the Ukrainian Super Cup with Shakhtar Donetsk, which I'm not going to sit here and say I watch Ukrainian football every week, but I think he probably should have won that game. Yeah, like Shakhtar back in their heyday were quite a fun outfit, weren't they?
They had Madrid, didn't they?
Sassuolo, I actually thought very impressive. Do you know? But he was there for a long time. He actually kind of became part of his that was him. Sassuolo was his project, and he was committed to it. And over time he built. And then at Brighton, we saw something good for a year. And then we just saw a massive drop off.
But let's also add to the fact he lost a lot of key players in that second year. Caicedo had gone, McAllister had gone. That's his whole midfield.
Yeah, but even like Marseille, like there isn't really much of an excuse why this Marseille team have dropped off a cliff the way they have. Like they've got some really good players.
Factor, doesn't it? It feels like you have a nice year, goes well, and then you worry about what's going to blow up.
Apparently it's like, he was demanding more from his players. Like he even said when he went to Marseille, he was like, I'm doing this not for money, I'm doing this for the people of Marseille because I want to give it to them. I'm like, you're not some like Messiah, mate. Like, do you know what I mean? Like, you are a fairly trophy barren manager who's not actually done enough to. I think my problem with De Zerbi is people talk about him as if he's on the level of like these geniuses of today's game. And he's not, particularly when there are some very high-profile tanking of seasons under him so far. Like Marseille were in a quite good position in the Champions League. They're not even made the top 24 at this. Like Bodo Glimt are in. So I don't even know why I'm hammering Bodo Glimt. Maybe he'd be a good signing. Neil Knutson, where he's called.
He's got a lot of ties to the club. I don't know whether it's like in terms of financial stuff or
the Norwegian mafia, they're not letting him go.
I don't actually know what it is.
But look, my De Zerbi thing is, you know what? As an interim, actually, it might be quite smart because he's a bit cool. He's a bit demanding.
He's not going to take.
Yeah, he'd go in there and be like, okay, guys, come on, and then you'd probably. I think if you could get him on a 6-month deal and say
he'll never do that.
Well, I'm just saying. in terms of managers available right now, I wouldn't mind it, but I would not give him a long-term contract.
I
because
know, I totally agree.
I constantly believe that he's looking.
He's a two-year manager, isn't he?
He's like
a
what
two-year
he's like what Marco Silva used to be before he kind of just
I get what you mean by
understood
that,
where he was at Fulham and has committed to a project again. I think he
but
really
could
believes that
you-
he's like much bigger than he is.
But you know what I think I could see happening with Spurs fans, genuinely. Like, if he say became the manager, I could see within day one, like, and obviously no Spurs fan is going to be like, oh, I'm not going to believe the manager. I'm not going to want him to do well. But I can see him almost like getting the club. I can see him in that first year doing almost like what Ange did in his first year, like rebuilding it, getting on playing really nice football. There is a thing with Spurs, like they're genuine. I think there are other clubs where, I think Chelsea, for instance, Chelsea fans don't care how we play football.
Yeah,
Where it could be turgid, really boring football, but if we're winning, don't care. Like that's what Chelsea have had. I think there is a genuine thing with Spurs where they do want to play nice football. They want to be able to, as you mentioned already, they pay a lot of money to go to these games. They want to go there and enjoy this football, and that's something that they have had over the years. Harry Redknapp did that for sure. Pochettino obviously did that as well. And we saw, I think, at times Ange do that, and Spurs fans really enjoy that.
Yeah, Ange's football when it was at its best, I think it's the best. It's probably the best football I've seen.
And I
at
think
Tottenham.
that's understandable as well. Like they were scoring
That or
goals
Redknapp,
were incredible.
Different
Just
styles, but obviously with
much different
with
eras.
Redknapp we had Modric and Bale, and it was very exciting. And Pochettino was, I wouldn't say Pochettino's football was as necessarily easy on the eye, although it was great football. Don't get me wrong, but it wasn't as beautiful as Postecoglou or Redknapp maybe.
But if it was De Zerbi, would you absolutely hate it? Or would there be a bit of you that's like, look, if we get the right side of De Zerbi and now he's at a club where possibly we can, this is if the board actually do back him, or is it something you do just think in 2 years it's gone?
I just think it's a total bell end.
Yeah, fair enough.
I just
Fair
again,
enough,
I
I
think
kinda
it's
agree.
really difficult. I think like Henry said, if you could somehow get him on a 6-month deal to be your interim manager, I don't think there's a better option out there right now in terms of the fact that that he's able to manage in the Premier League. I think, like you said, in terms of this thing with Spurs playing football, his footballing philosophy, I think, lines up really well with what a lot of Spurs fans want to see. You want to play good, attractive football. You want to press from the front. You want
Romero
to
put his
play for the
foot
line.
on top of the ball.
Well, this is the thing. We've not got Romero for 3 games. So if De Zerbi comes in for the Arsenal game, he's got to try and play out the back with Dragusin. So no disrespect to Rally Dragusin, but that's not his bag whatsoever. But
What is his bag? I'm interested to know.
Get
Get the ball in the air.
What's in Dragusin's bag?
It's there's something in that bag at the Euros, but we've not seen it since. I think that for me, my reservations with De Zerbi don't come about his football; they come about his character.
Yeah, I think that's understandable.
His volatility is a huge issue, which is just a huge with Tottenham. Like, it feels like an absolute match made in hell in terms of someone that will rightly probably challenge the people above him 100%, and they're not going to like that. And Conte did that, Mourinho did that, Pochettino did that, and that is why those old managers kind of ended up losing their jobs.
But to a degree, from a
Postecoglou did it
Spurs
as well.
fan point of view, do you not want that?
Of course you want it, but it means that the project is probably not going to get anywhere because he's probably not going to get the backing that he wants, and then he'll call them out and then he'll be gone. Right? It's like Conte deserved to go, but I think what Conte said at the end of that reign resonated with a lot of Spurs fans, but also his position was untenable at the same time as well. But that volatility is a huge issue for me in terms of just the fact that it doesn't feel secure and safe, does it? But also, I think his handling of certain situations with players as well, like the clips that you've seen from some of the Marseille training sessions
he,
and
boots
in the
players
dressing
off.
rooms. It's just
the
like
dressing
we've
rooms,
got a lot of young players at Tottenham as well, and it just feels like, maybe we do need some home truths kind of being told to some of the players, and we do need them to be inspired and do need them to feel like there are huge consequences to what could happen here.
We also don't even go to HR to claim about
Exactly. And also the Mason Greenwood stuff, I'm just I just don't... If you can separate all of that, there is a really good football coach in Roberto De Zerbi. The issue is that you can't separate all that. You just cannot. And I just think for the long term, it would be a really bad fit. And that's why I come back to Pochettino. Like I said, I am not fully convinced that Pochettino's...
It's going to be
I think it'll be Pochettino if we stay. But I'm not fully convenced about Pochettino's style of football still being able to be...
Looking at the available managers, it's not like
Well, we've got a few here. Why don't we go through a couple quickly then? Glasner.
No.
He's going to... You don't think so at all? You don't want to play that side of football?
No, thank you. Yeah, no thanks.
Not at all?
I just think Glasner's won trophies. I just think he is a winner, and I think you're wrong.
I just think it'd be another... I think that you'd maybe get a bit more out of him than Frank, but I don't think it would go anywhere. I don't think it would go anywhere.
But at least you were going into it. I think you know more of what his football is.
I think if Glasner came in right now, he'd keep Tottenham in the Premier League.
This is like the crux of my annoyance is that you finished 17th last year. You're currently in a relegation battle again, and you're looking at a manager in Glasner who's won the Europa League, and he's won the FA Cup, and he's won the Community Shield. Well, I know, but the idea that you wouldn't take Glasner really pisses me off because I'm like, you're not in a position to say no to someone like Oliver Glasner. You're not bigger than him currently, in my opinion.
I also don't think we're in a position to be like kind of almost patronised as a fan base in that way, in the sense
it's
that
it's not patronising.
No,
it's just facts on the ground. It's just facts on the ground.
Yeah, that is true. But again,
like, you're not in a position to be like, nah, you're definitely not good enough. He's just won the FA Cup and he's won the Europa League in like the last 5 years.
But they are also not doing well this season.
What do you mean? Palace's predicament is way worse.
Palace fans want him sacked.
Palace's predicament is way worse because they don't have like the ability to go and buy all these like good players. Like, if I was Glasner, I'd be pissed off at Palace as well. Like, because what can he do? I agree that he's down tools a bit, and I don't agree with the way he's acted.
That's not acceptable. I don't think that in the way that he's kind of done that. I also think that with the expectation, with what comes out from the board at Tottenham, and this is my biggest thing about the fan base feeling like they're almost kind of gaslit. Spurs fans, and this is what annoys me about Spurs fans feeling like they don't have a right to dream bigger than just making sure that we want to stay in the Premier League. I'm not turning my nose up at Oliver Glasner. I just don't think he's a great fit because I just don't really see it working. Yes, he's won trophies, 100% he's won trophies. It could also all end in tears, and he doesn't really play the style of football that I think is the right kind of fit for Tottenham, and I think that does matter regardless of the fact that we finished 17th last year in a relegation battle this year. At the moment, I couldn't give a shit about how we play football. I want to get out of this situation, but in the summer, Spurs are in a position where hopefully we can try and wipe the slate clean a little bit. The club need to put their money where their mouth is in terms of breaking the wage structure and all those kind of things, because we've seen teams before, like Man United finished 15th last year, and I know Spurs aren't Man United and all that kind of stuff, but they were still able to attract Mbeumo, Cunha, because they pay the wages. Tottenham haven't done that enough, and that is why the burden of responsibility is on the club. Spurs fans should have a right, with the money that comes in, with the stuff that comes out from the football club, to have a right to feel like we should at least be competing for European football. It's not ridiculous to say that at all, and I don't like this idea that we should just feel confined to just turn our nose up at certain managers and these kind of things. Like Glasner, if you said to me, if Glasner was out of a job, would you take him for the next 6 months to get you through the rest of the season? Or 3 months or 4 months, whatever it is. I'd probably say yes, because needs must at this point. I wouldn't want him for the long term because I still feel like there are decent green shoots within this squad to go and achieve much more than we are right now. The recruitment has not been good enough in certain areas. It has been decent in others. The negligence of certain positions in the squad in terms of not buying a left-side defender for 2 years, and a left-back as well, and bringing in a left-back in January that's come from Brazil and has never played a game in the Premier League, while Destiny Udogie constantly gets injured. Porro being put through the mill for the last couple of years, playing more games than anyone under Postecoglou. It's no wonder why he's finally got injured. Like, the burden of responsibility is on the football club, right? But we also have a belief as Spurs fans that we should be dreaming higher than where we are right now. This is an anomaly for Spurs in the recent. I don't think it's fair to suggest that we should just be thinking about like.
And also, Glasner's not like a guy who lasts very long at a lot of these clubs as well. He ends up moving on.
Of course, he's a winner. Like, fair play to him. I think he's a good manager. I think he's probably a better manager than Thomas Frank. And if you said short term right now, I'd probably say yes, even though I wouldn't be convinced about the long term. But if you said to me, okay, if you survive the season and you finish 14th or whatever, would you want Oliver Glasner as your next manager? I would say no, and I think that's valid.
What about Enzo Maresca?
Yeah. I would like Maresca.
Don't think he goes to Spurs.
I feel like, I mean, there's this weird thing that everyone's kind of accepting that Pep is just leaving in the summer, even though he's got another year left. But it does feel like that City job is maybe more so. But I kind of agree. Yeah, I think Maresca will be very good for you. I do think, board-wise, might be interesting again. But we'll see.
This is the thing. I just don't think as much as, like I said, sometimes as fans, like any club, we get carried away at certain points. We hype up our players and we think that, we can actually do something this season. And we've shown flitters of that before. And even in the last few years after Poch, like, we've shown that we can threaten to get there, whether that's because of individual brilliance carrying us like Kane and Son, or under Ange, it was more of a collective thing. We're playing some great football. There have been signs there that this squad and this team can achieve something. But ultimately, I think long-term with this board in place, that no manager is actually going to be able to succeed for the long term. And that is, like I said, why I keep going back to Pochettino, because I'm not saying that Pochettino said in that High Performance podcast that he said he's desperate to win the Premier League and all those kind of things.
He is on the most PR run ever to get back to Spurs.
I'm sorry,
of course he is, but I'm not saying
I don't think he's
done enough. But I think Pochettino's done enough. But my point is with Poch is that we have to feel some sort of synergy and connection again between the fans and the manager. And I accept your point that there are massive questions still be answered as to whether his style of football can be played and translate in the modern day as it did 10 years ago when he was at his peak at Tottenham. But I also think Pochettino is a manager that is capable. But I'm not sure. I think even for that first season, Pochettino is a manager that is definitely capable of getting a squad like this with a couple of additions in the summer back to at least a stable playing field where then we can build on top of that. It's about setting those building blocks.
17,
that's why I feel like he is the right option for the summer. I'm not saying that he is the manager that's going to go and take us to that next level. This is my point with Poch. This is why I would go for him. I just feel like we can start to build slowly back towards something. Whether he is the guy to then take us to that next level, I don't know. I also think that Spurs fans, they kind of just, and again, it's difficult me speaking from a Spurs fan's point of view and you guys not speaking from a Spurs fan's point of view. And I totally accept your points, but I also feel like it's that thing we kind of need to scratch that itch in a way because it's that's not the right way to run a football club. It's not the right way to run a football club.
The idea of Poch going to Spurs, doing badly, and then getting hounded out of there just makes me real sad. Like,
it makes me very sad.
But I genuinely think that is the most likely outcome. Like I can see a Poch returning.
None of the squad played under him. None of the squad played under him. The only people that like him is the fans. And if he's not getting the results,
you could say that. Well, Conor Gallagher did. You could also say that about Chelsea, but Poch stepped into a Chelsea squad that you're going to managed before.
You're going to hate who I think you should go get. I think you should go to Villarreal and get their manager, Marcelino. He's been around for ages.
Beat them in the Europa League this season. Champions League, this season.
He's got them like third in La Liga at the moment. He's been around for ages. He's like Poch Mark II. He's Poch Mark II, except he's actually managing at a good level. What do you think
about Farioli?
He's always
where is he? He's
Porto.
Mate, that guy's collected more clubs than anyone. Again, I'm incredibly sceptical of
almost the
managers out of the Portuguese league.
Yeah.
What about? Sorry,
I think Nagelsmann. I think you got to go for Nagelsmann.
I don't think Nagelsmann's
totally
as
agree
crazy as you make it.
Do you think?
Because also think about this way, right? Like,
who else? Where else is he going to manage?
Basically, it's United. It's United or Liverpool if they sack Slot, which is the other options, and they might already get a manager before that.
Okay, let's map out. For the big six, right? Let's look at next season.
Why don't you just go through the rest of available? So we've got them there.
Yeah.
Xavi. I actually don't mind Xavi as much.
No, I wouldn't mind Xavi at all. Yeah. I would quite like Xavi. I think having the manager of that kind of stature in terms of what he was as a player, play for your football club, he did do good things with that Barcelona team. It wasn't the classic kind of tiki-taka sort of approach, but even Hansi Flick has totally abandoned that. Exactly. I think he'll get the fans on side, although it did kind of blow up with Laporta, but Laporta is, as much as I moan about the Spurs board, Laporta is just a nutcase compared to them. So, again, I'm not saying Xavi would be, I don't think, like I said, I think any manager would struggle under this board. I do believe that, but I think Xavi would be a potential catalyst for change. I think Xavi would be a good option.
I think if Ancelotti had a slightly underwhelming World Cup with Brazil, I reckon. I mean, he went to Everton, so weirder things have happened.
I think United might be looking at him as well.
Do you think Spurs have the quality of players though to just rely on vibes ball that Ancelotti kind of?
I think that's totally disrespectful to Carlo Ancelotti.
But it's kind of what he has done at Madrid, really.
Yeah, well, it's been proven that Real Madrid is a very unique beast when it comes to managing those players, and you can't actually give them any tactics.
He was too pretty.
That's not to say that he is not a tactically flexible manager. He's one of the most successful managers of all time.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I mean, I'm just judging
Spurs too big for him. Spurs too big for him.
It might be, mate.
What about Carrick? Again, we'll go short answers.
He's coming to Fulham, mate. He's coming to Fulham.
Yeah, I wouldn't be massively against Carrick, to be honest.
Marco Silva.
Xabi Alonso.
Yeah, of course.
He won't go.
Marco Silva.
I like Marco Silva. I think of all the mid-table managers, I think Marco Silva, in terms of the style of football, would probably be the most attractive option. Again, he's a manager that you've seen it at Fulham and Everton and things in the past in terms of he wants that level of backing. And I think if he wasn't to get it at Tottenham, which we've...
McKenna.
I really like Kieran McKenna. I think that in terms of his football principles, I think there's a lot to get excited about. Working with younger players as well, those kind of things.
Possibly.
But I mean, I feel like if he gets Ipswich out of the Championship, which I feel like could be quite likely with the way that Coventry are kind of trending and those kind of things, I think that maybe he would probably stay there for another year. I'm not saying that he wouldn't take the Tottenham job if approached. Obviously, he used to work at Tottenham as well. I think Kieran McKenna was a big part of the reason why Ole Gunnar Solskjaer succeeded at Man United. I think that reflects really well on him and Carrick as coaches. And I think you've seen McKenna wasn't able to compete in the Premier League. I know they spent a lot of money, but still, it's still a big jump. Carrick is doing well with Man United. He's got a lot of quality players, but I wouldn't be against McKenna really. I kind of feel like with McKenna, I need to look more deep into what he kind of does. But I know I think he plays football in the right kind of way that Spurs fans want to see it, and I think he'd give young players an opportunity. So
I actually think McKenna, because like Chelsea were interested in him last time, and he kind of stayed loyal to Ipswich. I think if that came around a second time and a big club came into him, I think he'd go
Try and take it.
He'd go,
Yeah.
sorry,
do it now.
Ipswich. Like,
Yeah, fair enough.
can't.
Which I think will be fair. Yeah, I think
The last one, I don't know so much about this one, but I just think it was interesting. What about Arne Slot if he left Liverpool?
I was thinking about this yesterday.
Yeah, I think that'd be a good appointment. That'd be a good appointment. You can't.
knock down a
I don't
Premier
think we
League
turn our
winner.
nose up at it.
No, exactly.
No, I agree.
Okay, then let's map out the top six's managers next season within our own world, and that way it might be able to help us with who's actually available to go to Spurs. Chelsea will obviously have Liam Rosenior.
You say obviously. There's absolutely zero guarantees that he will obviously be your manager next year.
Most likely.
That 6-year
Most
contract
likely.
means zilch.
Most likely. Okay, sure. City.
Xabi Alonso.
You think Pep goes and you think he's going to get Alonso?
Well, sorry.
Enzo Maresca.
No, I think tactically, I think Xabi Alonso.
See, I've had Xabi Alonso into Liverpool with.
I really think that Enzo, that whole thing about he would let Chelsea know if City approached him. I really think he's trying to talk up that. I didn't watch Chelsea enough and thought you guys are really good at football to think that this guy is going to succeed Pep Guardiola. I think. And I know, look,
and Alonso, after dealing with Real Madrid.
Yeah, but the thing is, the squad at City squad are used to having a manager that tells them what to do. Because Pep has such supremacy over there. I think the Athletic did a really good little video on Alonso at Real Madrid. Just sounds like the players if they're not being picked, they just kick up a fuss. Like
it's very hard to judge Alonso on his time at Madrid.
Yeah, because he genuinely tried to do things, and a lot of the players were like, nah, it doesn't work for us. So if Pep was going to leave, and it does look like he's getting more and more bored and frustrated, maybe not bored, but do you know what I mean? It does look like maybe he's getting to the point where he just wants to have a break. Then I think Xabi Alonso would be a much more interesting fit. At this point. And also, I think City's on Alonso. Alonso's basically got Bayern, Liverpool, and City.
Bayern aren't getting rid of Company. Like Company's doing a fucking really good job.
No, I know he's not going. That's my point. He's not going anywhere. Yeah. So would Liverpool go in for Xabi? Oh my God! I've just shot myself in the foot. Maybe Liverpool going for Xabi.
That was my point.
What am I saying?
Anyway, okay. So
it's not like it's been rumoured for the last year.
Sorry,
I do think
scratch that from the records.
I do think Pep might end up staying for another year. So let's say Pep is still there. Arteta.
I also think Slot could end up staying at Liverpool.
I think that as well.
Like if they have,
I know the fans aren't are getting a bit frustrated, but I think the board aren't. Like I don't think the board are.
Slot's biggest issue is
outside of the Champions League. Then
you're not a million miles away from that.
Slot's biggest problem is they won the league, and then his second biggest problem is they went and spent 250 million on two strikers when they only really needed Ekatike. So I mean, in my opinion,
I think if I was a Liverpool fan, I'd probably at the moment be in favour of keeping Slot and then seeing what happens.
He's got enough credit in the bank.
Well, let's say
and also Liverpool are a big enough club to, if they got into the third season and it still wasn't working, those players still weren't necessarily gelling. Also, you look at the way the Wirtz is kind of really starting to find his feet in Per now. Some things are trending in the right direction. Van Dijk is getting better again after that. What game was he had a shocker? Was it Bournemouth?
Mate, he's the only good thing.
And then Konate, to be fair, since his was it his father that passed away? Since he's come back into the team against Newcastle, he was excellent. City, I don't think Liverpool really deserved to lose that game, even though the second half approach wasn't great. I thought Konate and Van Dijk have looked better in the last few games. Wirtz is starting to get there. If Liverpool finish in the top four, I don't think there's any way they actually do sack Slot.
Yeah.
It's not guaranteed they finish in the top four, obviously with Chelsea and Man United. But if they get Champions League football, I don't see it happening.
Well,
so
let's just say then, really, the one that's the big significant one is United.
Yeah.
Right?
That's the one that affects us the most.
That affects you the most, exactly. But they're never going to go for Poch. Well,
they could. They wanted him before.
They wanted him before, but I feel like they've also maybe seen his time at Chelsea and realised maybe they don't want to.
Chelsea wasn't as bad, I don't think, as people make out.
I really think Carrick.
I don't think. Again, maybe this is having been myself watching him for that year and how it went, and being able to. I honestly, I think that last month did a lot of patchwork for Poch within people's perceptions.
Yeah,
and look,
stop talking about Pochettino.
And look, but you're not wrong, to be fair, because he could be one for United. He could be. But I guess let's chuck a manager to United. Who do you think
I genuinely think that Michael Carrick is gonna perform his way into the job. And I know it's a bit misleading because he has no other cup competitions he has to focus.
Risk it.
But this is the thing that people go, oh, don't do an Ollie situation. I think Carrick has a much more defined style of football.
I agree.
And
with that.
at Middlesbrough, his team did play very interesting attacking football. And I think I know that they didn't get promoted in the end, and I know that a lot of Middlesbrough fans think that maybe they should have. But the Championship is probably the most brutal league in world football. Like it really is.
Like that, couldn't it?
And
But it's also a very different. Like I think being a manager of Middlesbrough in the Championship and being the manager of Manchester United are two very different things.
Ole Gunnar Solskjaer basically did like a light Ancelotti job in terms of the way that he managed that United squad and sort of cheered them all up and got them.
It was he was hands off, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was hands on in terms of the man management, but he was in terms of the tactical setup. Like I said earlier, I think a lot of it was Michael Carrick and Kieran McKenna.
Yeah, well, that's my. So
But if you're
this
the
is
Man
what I'm
United
saying.
board, and all this list of managers in front of you, and Carrick, like, do you actually make the decision?
I don't
to give
think they
Carrick
will.
the job?
I think they will roll the dice and go for someone else.
Yeah.
I think that is my gut feeling, regardless of what happens.
Who?
I don't know.
This is the issue.
Well, I think if the vibes in Old Trafford are really good, and let's face it,
Place is bouncing at the moment.
then I think they might just try and stick with Carrick for another year.
I think
I'm quite torn on it.
I
So
actually,
my
the
gut
more I
is
think
I believe
about it-
Zach, but I'm not sure.
the more I think about it, the more I think Nagelsmann might end up being the Spurs manager in the summer.
Yeah.
I mean, I would absolutely love
The
that. If
issue
we
is whether-
somehow stumble into a situation where Julian Nagelsmann is the next Spurs manager, then brilliant.
And
Because I think he does what we want from Poch in the sense of the style of football, those kind of things. I think Nagelsmann has proved that he can scale that kind of football up into the modern era in terms of we want to see this Spurs team play with more intensity in and out of possession. And Nagelsmann, I think, has done that really, really well in terms of the way that he presses and also the way that he's able to kind of play through the thirds and counter-attack and those kind of things. Like Nagelsmann is 100% the best
Option,
semi-realistic option for Tottenham. I don't think it will happen. If you said to me right now, would you want him to be the manager? He would be my number one choice. Okay. So that's
Another name which I don't think people should write off is Kovac. Kovac at Borussia Dortmund.
Yeah.
They've only lost one game this season.
They did lose to us.
Well, fair, like whatever. Like
But they weren't very good.
But you're Champions League
you've
form,
lost.
man. You're different from the Champions League.
You've lost to loads of teams this year that you wouldn't say are better than you. So I mean,
but my point is about then I guess the level of the.
I'm just saying, like he's had a go at Bayern Munich. He's actually doing really good things at Borussia Dortmund. I just think again, like that is the kind of level of manager I think you're realistically going to get.
I can only really go off my own experience in the fact that they were under Thomas Frank, who's severely underperformed in the
They had
league.
a red card as well in that game.
He's done more than Thomas Frank's career.
You did.
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that from my own experience watching them this season with my own eyes, I can't say I've watched a.
Sorry, that was my
Whatever, Ben.
No. Yeah, fine. Okay, yeah, Nagelsmann to Spurs, let's say. So we've got Rosinia at Chelsea, Nagelsmann to Spurs. I've gone for Xabi Alonso at City and Slot staying at Liverpool. Why not?
And then United's getting Poch.
Do you think, obviously,
Poch.
Villa and Newcastle fans will get annoyed if we don't include them in this Big Six conversation? When I say Big Six, I'm
Newcastle not Big Six right now.
But I don't see
They're
Newcastle
not,
getting rid of Eddie Howe. I
No,
don't.
I was thinking.
in the
I
summer.
was thinking.
I think in the summer. I think they'll probably go.
I think that win again. I mean, the thing is, you can't. Can you? It's like when people say they think their team are back and they've just beaten West Ham. Like that was kind of a thing for a while. I don't think. Can you say for certainty that Newcastle that is going to be a turning point for them after they've just beat Tottenham? Do you know what I mean? Like, it's
No, but I
think
just
that could be big because
sometimes
I was
I
at that ground on Tuesday. That connection with the fans, they were singing his name the whole time.
I think that's such a strong. I feel like if they sacked Eddie Howe, I don't know where that Newcastle squad fully goes.
Well,
I don't know what manager comes in and is like.
This is what I was going to bring up because obviously with Pochettino, he was talking about the fact that he's desperate to win the Premier League and all these kind of things. And if it's not Spurs, I could actually see Poch at Newcastle at some
he's a
point.
manager that would love
They're
to
saying the
get
owners
in
are getting a bit more disinterested at Newcastle. That was
Well,
what I was
they're
reading.
not able side generally.
Yeah.
Well, then obviously they're not able to come in. And, like, I don't think they were. I think they've not been able to expend as much money as they wanted to spend in making that squad better. Obviously with PSR.
Yeah,
and stuff
if they
like that.
can't, they're only going to spend money to make.
What about Unai Emery? What have
Tottenham.
you tried to wiggle the Unai Emery to for Aston Villa?
Would he leave Villa?
Well, he's
Not for
getting
Tottenham.
more and more frustrated with the PSR situation.
Yeah, but would he leave?
I'd love Emery at
Would
Tottenham,
he
but it's not gonna
leave
happen.
Villa? I don't know if he leaves Villa for it, man.
If you suggest that to a Villa fan, I think
I
they'd
think
punch you in the face.
I think they'd punch you in the face. Yeah, genuinely.
That's why I'm not going to say. Because imagine if I said, if I made a video being like, I think Tottenham should go and get Unai Emery. I think I would get like.
You've been saying
you can say that, but you can just caveat it with that. Like, look, it's going to be really difficult to get.
You've been saying lots of times here you want Tottenham to put their big old money bags bollocks on the table. Like, go to Villa and be like, we're a bigger club than you and we want your manager.
Oh yeah, of course I would want that, but I just don't. Like I said, I just don't see that happening.
You should dream big, boy. You should dream. Come on.
You were telling me that we finished 17th last season.
I'm trying to get on your carriage. I'm saying dream big. I'm trying to see it through your eyes.
I'll carry you along with me.
Can I finish on one thing?
Go on then.
Completely separately. In the words of Simon Jordan to Ennio Luki the other day, we've given this subject about Tottenham way too much credence. We are talking about Tottenham too much.
We're a big club.
I want to look down the camera and finish this podcast by addressing a heinous
selection of words from the mouths of Jim Ratcliffe. They came out this year.
Yeah.
Jim Ratcliffe coming out and blatantly lying about immigration figures and then suggesting that X amount of people are on benefits. When he sits in his Monaco little residency paying zero tax into this system, he has nothing to do with anything like that. Jim Ratcliffe is a scrotum. Like, I'm for what he said.
That's not the word I think you were going to say.
Well, I'm trying to think of words that aren't going to demonetise your video, quite frankly.
I did say bellend earlier. So.
For him, with his wealth, with his influence, to be parroting some of the heinous right-wing bollocks that we're seeing, particularly when it comes to migration, when it comes to, and particularly someone who owns a football club where the modus operandi of the situation is bringing in players from all over the world. Football, all these like right wingers,
The whole reason the Premier League is blown up is because of
they always turn a blind eye when it comes to footballers because they're like, oh, well, you can kick a ball well. It's a disgrace.
Didn't he say that the population's gone up by 20 million in the last? What was it? It was just
he said it's gone up like something like that, 20, 15 million.
million to like 70. It's like that's just not possible.
Yeah, and he said like net migration of 9 million. I don't know. He said all sorts of lines, which is just so dangerous and wrong and inappropriate. And for him to be saying that, it's like, well, I've ruffled some feathers at United. You know, it's not about being popular. He has no right as a billionaire. Has no right. And by the way, in this like Epstein Files era, where we're seeing like how connected, I'm not saying he's part of that, but what we've seen is like all these bigwigs working together to try and manipulate situations and to try and get their way, and they only care about the markets and the bank and their wealth and whatever. For him to be trying to like put his nose in it, you own foot. He's got his Ineos, whatever. I don't care about any of that. Even though the fact he probably doesn't pay much tax on any of those operations either. You own a football club. Stick to talking about that. Focus on that. Focus on the mess that you've made at Manchester United and fixing that. Do not get involved in like politics like this as a billionaire fucking loser. And do not go after like migrants like that when you're a billionaire sitting in your little high castle. You have no right to go out and say anything like that at all. I think it's a fucking disgrace that he went out and said that. And I'm really, really pissed off about it. And I think it's important that in this Spurs era chat that we talk about something that actually matters.
Well done.
Saying Spurs don't matter.
Well, it matters.
No, you're right. It's for an issue that has no effect on him whatsoever. He can kind of sit there in his ivory tower and just look down and go, "Oh, immigration is really affecting this population." It's like it actually has nothing to do with you whatsoever. And it's like it's almost like he's listened to one Nigel Farage reform speech and gone, man. He's speaking up for the people there. When he got asked about that, would you vote for them at the next election? He kind of quickly backtracked. I was like, actually, I don't know. I think Nigel is an intelligent man, and I think someone has to be prepared to be unpopular to come in and do the job, and they've got to be prepared to be unpopular for a bit. It's like. I'm just so sick of billionaires gaslighting people in worse, poorer situations at a moment in time where like the middle class is being melted away, where it's never been harder for like the lower class to make a living, and a lot of people are a bit disillusioned because the social contract of life that you work hard, you're able to afford certain things like a house, you're able to get on the property ladder. When all this kind of stuff is disappearing in front of our eyes, when loads of people are being strangled with like student debt, for billionaires to come out and just spout bollocks because it just suits their agenda, I think it's just utterly ridiculous. And particularly someone like Jim Ratcliffe, who I do not think has covered himself in flowers with the way that he's acted at Manchester United, laying off people in their hundreds and then spending millions on players and then trying to justify it. Well, it's for the fans. Like, what he's done is heinous, and then he's going after like the poorer people that he could have potentially left people in a position where they're like really struggling to get jobs. For him to go out and say that other bollocks, I just think it really pissed me off. Especially when, like, not to sound like Gary Neville, but this is Manchester United. Like, this is the biggest football club in the world. Well, one of the biggest football clubs in the world that has a huge global fan base, a huge working class fan base as well. Fans from all over the world that will tune in and watch these kind of games. Fans that will come over to this country to come and support this kind of team. Fans who have grown up in Manchester that might have come from, different heritage backgrounds and those kind of things that came over a long kind of time ago. They are part of the foundation as to why that football club is as big and as successful and as well supported as they are. So to throw that back in the face of a lot of people, regardless of
embarrassing,
it's a disgrace.
Without immigration, to be honest, I'm not here.
You're right, exactly.
my dad.
And you wouldn't have this podcast.
Yeah, you wouldn't have this podcast.
Jim, migration and the influx of footballers from all over the world is what has made the Premier League amazing.
Completely
And it's not just the
1
Premier League; it's what's made
million % football
like
incredibly.
Football, this country, it's what's made it
You look at the
absolutely
England team.
spectacular.
If you look at the England team without immigration, we would have basically nobody in that team anymore. Like it's not.
But it's like
just
Henry
not
said,
how it works.
athletes just don't seem to count really in terms of the way people.
Well, it's that classic thing, when they are good, when they considered, they're good lads, they're able to do things like play for England, or they're really good at their career, whatever it is.
They're
Brilliant.
English.
They're English, yeah.
And when they're not,
and then they're not
they're foreign.
There.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Sorry, Zach, just had to finish.
No. I stand by every point, mate. Well done. I hope you guys have enjoyed this episode of Nothing But Football. Changed a little bit at the end. Didn't see that ending coming. Thought we were just going to go, what Spurs?
Nothing but Ratcliffe.
Exactly, nothing but Ratcliffe. If a lot of people at home want to check out yourself, Ben, and want to see maybe in even more detail on your opinions about Spurs and the current situation, where can they go?
YouTube mainly at the moment, to be honest. I'm going to do a classic new manager tier list later today. So make sure to go and watch that. And if you're not a Spurs fan, there's probably no point in subscribing. Although I am going to do a normal general football channel soon, so I will do that. So
nice.
go and subscribe to that when it comes.
Big H.
Yeah, got James Walcott on the quiz this week, so that should be really fun. Actually got lots more. Football Joe YouTube is changing to Sports Joe, so we're opening the floodgates for plenty more content.
Bit of cricket.
I think we've got a video with Bunting and Michael Van Gerwen coming out. So watch this space, I'd say, and Ella Toon and someone else. So we're going for it.
Premier League tonight.
Fantastic.
Up the darts.
Stay tuned for more podcasts, and stay tuned to the main channel because we've got some big videos coming out in the next couple of weeks. See you later.